It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Bob Laing. Thank you so much. He flew all the way from Ohio to Phoenix, Arizona just to come on the show. I feel so honored. Bob Laing was born and raised in Wert, Ohio, which is located in rural northwest Ohio. His father, grandfather, and great-grandfather have all been dentists, working in the same family practice, which has been serving the Wert community for over 80 years. Bob graduated from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio in 2016, where he completed 2 bachelor degrees in Zoology and Political Science. He is currently a second-year student at the Ohio State University College of Dentistry. After graduation, he plans to return home to work with his father and serve as a 4th-generation dentist in his family's practice. Throughout his experience as a front desk and dental assistant in the family practice during his high school and college years, Bob developed a passion to learn more about the human relations and business aspects of dentistry. During his first year of dental school, he learned about the Dentistry Uncensored podcast from a friend and classmate and began listening and learning as much as he could from the many resources that Dentistry Uncensored and Dentaltown had to provide. Laing discovered the 30-day dental MBA program after he joined Dentaltown and began listening to the program every chance he got. After listening to the 30-day MBA series a couple times completely through, Bob has developed his list of notes and questions for Dr. Farran to see if there are any updates or additions that can be made to the curriculum now, 18 years after its release. So were you listening to 30-day MBA on YouTube or iTunes or Dentaltowns? Or?
So it all started because I had never listened to a podcast a day in my life. And I'm sitting home after our first year of dental school during winter break, and I text my buddy Tom when I'm about to drive back to Columbus. And I say, you tell me you listen to these podcasts, so tell me one to listen to. And he just texts me right back, episode 648, Dentistry Uncensored. I'm like, okay. So I get on the Apple podcast app and I'm trying to find Dentistry Uncensored. I find it, I download it. It was an episode where you were talking to, I think, the title was like The Dental Coach, and you were talking to a consultant, I forget his name. And I was just so amped. Like, I loved it. It was a great podcast. I liked the way you talked. I liked, your attitude on things. So then I was like, okay, let's download more. And I listened to another one because it's a 2-hour drive back to Columbus. And then I'm starting to see if there are other dental podcasts. And there's all these dental podcasts that I had no idea about. And I found the 30-day MBA was on the podcast, and it was by you. And I said, well, okay, let's listen to this. And that's how I got started listening to it.
The Dentaltown app now has 60 dental podcasts. Do you have the Dentaltown app on your phone?
Yeah.
So the Dentaltown, if you go under,
this is where I found all the other podcasts. As I went
know,
here and found
and
them.
there's what I don't understand about podcasts is there's some dental podcasts that they put it on iTunes.
Yeah.
But so many of the dentists I talked to found it on Dentaltown. So
because it's in a list.
Yeah, so you have 60. I mean, there's Dentistry Uncensored, Dental Success Blog, the Dentist Freedom Blueprint, How to Open a Dental Office. By the way, look at that, How to Open a Dental Office. How many views are on there?
685,000 Jamie Amos.
685,931 views. Yep. Podcasts are huge. Dentist Metrics, Dentist Implant Practices, Dental Up.
There's one called I think it's the Young Dentists. There's ones for dental students, people that are just out of dental school too. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. So do you listen to them all audio, or do you listen on YouTube channel?
So I listened to the 30-day MBA for the first time, all audio. And then one day I was on YouTube, and I typed in your name or something because I wanted to see if you had any videos because I didn't know what you looked like. And so I looked it up. And then I saw that the 30-day MBA was on YouTube too, and you had actually video recorded it. And I didn't even catch that the first time I listened to it. So then the second time I listened to it was I watched them all on YouTube and got to see you with the slides, and the slides actually helped too. So
would you say I have a face for iTunes?
Yes.
Yeah, not YouTube. That's what everybody tells me. But you know what? That's the one thing we do differently on our podcast is 95% of all the podcasts in the world are just audio files on Deal, but the 2 largest search engines are Google and YouTube. And I think we're up to 6,500 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And what millennials tell me is they like to, they go home, they pull up YouTube on their iPhone, and then if they have Apple TV, they throw it up on their big screen.
That's what I do. Yep.
Yeah, so now you're, and same thing, we have 411 courses on Dentaltown. And what they say is number one, they don't want to go to a seminar that's 8 hours long. They don't want to drive across town, go to a convention, check in, register, blah, blah, blah. They only like to learn about an hour at a time. So they do Dentaltown Online CE on their iPhone, on the app, throw it up on their big screen, and then if you got to go to the bathroom or the phone rings, you can pause it. You never have to take notes because once you have the course, you can watch it infinitely. So if you need a handout or something like that, and then, it's very different than when I got out of school.
And if you want to take good notes, the thing I found the most beneficial is I could just press back 15 seconds. What did he just say? Okay, yeah, let me see that again. That's the best part about the recorded CE classes on Dentaltown, the YouTube videos, the podcast, is if I want to hear it again, I can hear it again. You know, some of our dental school classes, they've now started recording them, and those are the classes I do the best in. Because I can actually go listen to the lecture again and actually get the information down that I want. So it's huge. It's a great platform.
Yeah, plus when you go to a convention and take a course, and you show up in your underwear with a beer and a bowl of popcorn, I mean, they look at you like something's wrong. You know what I mean? But at home, you can do that. How do you get 4 generations? That is so cool. Why do you think it's going from grandfather, great-grandfather, grandfather, father, you?
I don't know. My great-grandpa was born in North Dakota and was going to Chicago. I don't even know how he got to Chicago. And he saw a pretty girl from across the room and said, that's the girl I'm going to marry. And he starts talking to her, and I think his family was in pig farming. I think that's what it was. They raised pigs and sold them and things like that. And so when he met my great-grandmother, you know, she was in nursing school or had just completed nursing school, and she said, you're going to have to get a real job. And he said, okay. And so I don't know how it happened, but he ended up becoming a dentist, and he did it, I think, in like a 2-year program or something, because this is the...
What year do you think he graduated from dental school?
I think he graduated from dental school, gosh, I am not sure. But if I had to guess, I'd say it was probably the late 1920s, early 1930s.
So do you have a museum in your office?
No, I wish we did. We have pictures. We have pictures.
Because the few dental offices I know, Bob Rui in St. Joe, Missouri, his dad was a dentist, his grandfather was a dentist, and he set aside an area with just a little area with the antique stuff that his grandfather did. And it's not only so romantic for me and Bob because I knew his grandfather before he died. I think the last time I saw him with a patient, he was 92 years old.
Wow.
And it's just so cool because people lose sight. You know, they always think the sky's falling, and then I'm like, do you know what dentistry was like 100 years ago? Mm-hmm. It's like people are so upset about this in 2017. It's like, do you realize 100 years ago, when there weren't vaccines, the Spanish influenza killed 5% of Americans during the flu season?
Yeah.
1 in 20 dropped dead. Mm-hmm. During the Civil War, 1 in every 30 Americans was killed.
Yeah.
And today's worse? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you should do that. And patients think it's really, really cool because if you're 4th generation dentist, this ain't a hobby for you. This is a life, a tradition.
It's a calling. I've never wanted to do anything else. You know, it's what I've always wanted to do because when I finally understood that it was a family business, and like when I would sit at my grandpa's house and I knew that he was a dentist and my dad was a dentist.
So you knew? Did you ever know your great grandfather?
No, he had passed away before I was born.
And how old was you when your grandfather passed away?
My grandfather, I was 8 years old.
So do you remember him much?
Yeah, I remember him.
Even at 8 years old?
Yeah. I remember he used to, when they'd babysit me, he'd sit and he'd watch my stupid cartoons with me. You know, my grandma wouldn't do it. She's like, those are stupid. And he'd sit there on the couch and, I don't know, read a newspaper or something, but he'd put his arm over me. So yeah, I remember my grandpa clearly from 8 years old, yeah.
That's cool. So I just got to live 3 more years and my grandchildren will remember me. So now you're going back to your great-grandfather. If he graduated in 1920, was he originally an outdoor dentist? Well, first of all, was he in the same town that you're in now?
He was in a little, even smaller town just north of Van Wert called Ohio City, and it's not a city. It's pretty small. But they ran an operation, I believe, out of a house, like out of their house. And that's where he worked. And then my grandpa went to dental school. He was the oldest of, I think my great aunts would be so mad at me. I think there were 6 kids. And so he was the oldest of them. And he came back and he said, okay, Dad, I want to work with you. This is my grandpa wanted to work with my great-grandpa. And my great-grandpa said, no, here's the keys. I'm leaving. I'm going to Florida. and he moved to Florida with 2 of my great aunts. And they went down there, and now they both married people. He taught at the University of Florida.
Dental school.
Yeah, dental school. That's where my great-grandfather...
Your great-grandfather did.
Yeah.
University of Florida.
Yep. And then he moved back to Ohio after teaching, after his 2 youngest daughters were able to go through school for free at University of Florida. And then he came back and he said, hey, he came back to my grandpa and said, I want to work with you, son. And my grandpa's like, this is my practice now. I don't know how I'm going to fit you in here. And my great-grandpa kind of got pissed, and he went and he opened his own office. So at one time in Van Wert, there were 2 Langs running 2 different offices. My old great-grandpa with like 1 chair, and then my grandpa running the original practice. And then he retired after a while. But yeah, so he eventually ended up moving back to our hometown in Ohio.
So the most interesting conversation I ever had was with that in St. Joe, Missouri, with George Rui Sr. And then his son, when I met him, Grandpa was like, I don't know, 90. I think I knew him from like, I don't know, 85 to 90 or 87 to 92, something like that. And then his son was a practicing dentist, and his grandson was a practicing dentist. And my jaw almost hit the floor because I said to him, I didn't know what to say to him, so I just said this silly question. I said, so what was the greatest invention, or what was the greatest thing that ever happened in dentistry? Knowing he was going to say the high-speed handpiece, because in his basement he had all the old jackrabbits, and me and his grandson are the same age, and we were playing with jackrabbits, and he gave George Rui Jr. One of his jackrabbits, and it was really fun. So I knew that was going to be the answer. You know what he said to me? The answer was the Great Depression.
That was the greatest thing to ever happen to dentistry?
And I said, what do you mean? He said, I graduated in 27. We were all outdoor dentists. We had a barber stool, we cut hairs, we shined boots, and we pulled teeth. The anesthetic was whiskey. And during Prohibition, the officers, we had it in a medicine bottle, we didn't have it in a liquor bottle, and nobody enforced it with the dentists because they all felt sorry for the patients. So you give them teaspoon after teaspoon after teaspoon of whiskey until they vomited, and once they vomited, they'd pull a tooth. I don't know if you've ever been hammered before, but you
can't feel anything.
You can't feel anything. But he said that in 29 the market crashed, and they thought, well, just the rich people lost their money. It didn't affect any normal people. But 32, it took till 32 to trickle down, and 32 to 36 was the Great Depression, and all these stores went bankrupt. I mean, we lost a third of the banks. And so the rents fell so cheap, they damn near went to zero. Everything was being boarded up. And they're like, well, it's boarded up, and it's minus 20 outside. Can I move inside the boarded out building? So rents fell so low, they moved inside. And he said, when we moved inside, we became professionals. And that's when we quit shining shoes and cutting hair and wearing white jackets and saying, no, we're no longer barbers and shining your damn boots. We're inside, we're indoors, and we're doctors now.
Very cool.
And he said that moving from outside to inside was what made the sovereign profession of dentistry. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah,
that is wild.
Yeah.
And now people, the sky's falling because of dental therapists and PPO. It's like, shut up, dude. You're inside with air conditioning. You have central air inside and running water and clean toilets. So I don't want to hear your whining.
Yeah.
So a lot of kids in dental school, they're torn because they're like, well, my mom's a dentist. That's why I'm a dentist. I want to go back and work with my mom. But God, do I really want to work with my mom? Because it's tough. You're business partners, and he's your dad.
Yeah.
So how do you emotionally? Is it easy for you because you had a really functional relationship with him, or you just realize there's pros and cons, and you're good with it?
I have a very functional relationship with my dad, which is great. But I didn't think about I didn't even know about all the complicated things all through undergrad. It's and even during my first semester at dental school, I wasn't thinking about that. It wasn't until I started listening to your podcast, then other people's podcasts, that joining the Facebook groups when I realized there's got to be a contract, there's got to be a separation out of monies. Like, I didn't know that all existed. And thank God I finally found a real source of real-life dental information rather than maybe the one dental business class I'll take, because I would have had no clue. So I didn't really think about it. Now that I think about it, I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be great. I think that, that's the whole reason that I'm so into this, is because I want to learn how can I make change. Because my dad's office, still on paper charts, still old school radiographs, no digital radiographs, and all the staff has worked there for at least 10 plus years.
Nice.
So I'm a young kid going in, and I don't want to go in and try and change everything. I don't want to try and act like I'm, You know, I don't want to throw anybody off because I don't have any credibility when I walk in that operatory. Just like you say, the assistant, you know, Connie, my dad's assistant for 30-something years, she's the one that when I walk out, the patient's going to look at her and say, do I really need this? You know, so I'm learning so much from this about how can I go in and make the changes I want to make and make a successful practice, but also, you know, do it in the most effective way possible.
So a couple things I hope you picked up on. Number one, he said he has a functional relationship with his dad. But you don't know what that really means, but what was a dead giveaway for me, how many staff does he have and how many have been there 10 years or more?
He has 2 part-time hygienists, 1 assistant, 1 receptionist.
And how long have they each been there?
The assistant's been there for 30-plus years. The hygienists have been there. I can't say for sure, but I got to think they both, one has at least been there for 15-plus. I'd say they've each been there for 15 plus would be my guess. And then the assistant is newer, but he's an older.
You said the assistant's been there 30 years.
Sorry, not the assistant, the front desk.
Front desk.
Yeah, he's
front desk 30 years.
Yeah.
And then the assistant.
No, the assistant has been there 30 years. The 2 hygienists 15 plus, but then the front desk has only been there for 4.
Okay, so see, the new girl has been there 4 years.
Yeah.
2 been there 15 each, and 1 has been there 30. So you're going back to a town. And this is what you see all the time. So this dentist is on wife number 3, and no one in the office has been there 3 years. And then here, this guy is got a 30-year, you got people that have been there 15, 30 years. That is the first sign of functional. There is something, if you can't keep your staff, you can't keep your spouse, you can't keep your patients, you can't keep your associates. And so, you know, if your dad is able to keep an assistant there for 30 years and 2 hygienists there for 15, he has to be a functional guy. He has to be give and take, get along.
Yeah, that's very much who he is.
Relationship oriented, not I will throw you under a bus to save a penny. You know what I mean?
He's not that way at all.
I mean, these, it's the difference in Japan's, the companies like Japan that make great cars versus American car companies. When Mr. Honda owned Honda and they would have a recession, and they would have to lay off a bunch of people. He said, well, I'm not going to do it. So what did he do? He got a list of everybody that had bought a car in Japan, and he'd take his workers, because the factory was shut down, and he made them repair kits, and he gave them surveys and data sheets. He said, I want you to go to Bob Laing. He lives in Wert. Is it
Wert, yep.
Wert, Ohio. What's the population of Wert?
The city is about 10,000, and then it's Wert County, and the county is about 32,000.
And how many dentists are in Wert?
6.
And
that's the county. There's 6 in the county.
So he give everybody documents. So they come out to you, Bob Laing, you're in Wert, Ohio. You bought a Honda car 5 years ago, and then will you please fill out this survey? Does anything not work? Well, you know the windshield wipers don't work. So you go out there and they fix the windshield wipers, but then they'd write up a report for the engineers. And so when the engineers are sitting there and they got 200 letters come back in saying that, and then they say, well, how do you think it's to be fixed? Well, instead of doing this, you should have made it like this or that. And the whole car is made in one place, whereas America, the parts are all made all around.
Yeah.
You got
the tier 1, the tier 2, the tier 3 factory, all of that.
And the engineers are in a different city than like Boeing.
Yeah.
Boeing airplanes are made in Seattle and the management is in Chicago. I mean, it's like, how dysfunctional. That'd be like you married and your wife, and you live in Chicago and your wife lives in Seattle.
Right.
And your kids are all in Wichita. It's just insane. And when they were doing these reports, the last question was, well, would you like a new car? And they'd say, well, yeah, you know, I'm thinking about buying this and that. And then when they had enough orders to start the assembly line, his workers would come back, they'd fire up the assembly. So here's America. Oh, our sales are down. You've been with us for 10 years. You got a house, mortgage, all this stuff. Now you're unemployed. Your benefits run out in 6 weeks. Now you're going to lose your house, lose everything. And then,
dysfunctional.
And then a year later, oh, now we want you back. And then meanwhile, the CEO was making $50 million a year in stock bonuses and Wall Street. And I mean, it's just, I mean, gosh, it's just.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And, customers for life, it comes from employees for life. And if you can't keep your employees, you can't keep your customers and all that stuff. So how many operatories your dad have?
5. 2 are hygiene specific and then 3 are operative.
So there's 6 dentists in a town of 10,000.
Yep.
But the county's got 32,000.
Yep, and there's 6 dentists in the county.
So here we go
with the breakdown.
32,000 people divided by 6 is 1 dentist for every 5,333. So for the country, we're 1 for every 2,850.
Yeah.
By the time you get within a mile of the ocean from San Diego to Monterey, you're from San Diego to LA on the beach, you're a dentist for every 500 people. Downtown areas, in the half of America lives in 147 metros, and the average downtown metro is about a dentist for 500. When you go to an area where there's a dentist for every 5,000, I mean, a Cyclops will crush it. Mm-hmm. And so you got to pick your poison. I know a lot of you are listening and saying, Howard, shut up, you said this a million times. But listen to Dr. Demographics. I mean, it's supply and demand. And if you're coming out of school, $350,000 in student loans, you go to North Scottsdale, or you go to Venice Beach, or you go to some of these areas. I mean, you either aren't a spender and you're going to live way below your means, and it's going to take you 10 years to pay off, all your student loans and all that stuff, or you're going to go rural and just crush it. And again, if the dental school deans, who seem to be very concerned about the rural, underserved areas. I mean, 11% of the counties in Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa don't even have a dentist, but they keep accepting people to dental school based on what they got into algebra, trig, and geometry, which is total bullshit, no sense. It's piled higher and deeper. Only an academic idiot or someone who works for the Pew Association cannot figure this out. Everyone else knows. If you don't have dentists on the Indian reservations, except Indians from the Indian reservation, what's the chance that you would go practice on the Navajo Indian reservation?
0.
0. He doesn't even speak Navajo. Don't you think a Navajo should live on the Navajo? And God, the Navajo know the Navajo. If I was Navajo, I'd want to go to Navajo dentist. They'd speak the language. They would know our culture. They would know.
I'm rural. I'm going to school in a city now. I want to go live rural again.
And why is that? Why did you not? So where's the Ohio State Dental School?
It's in Columbus.
Columbus. And what's the population in Columbus?
Columbus, I'd probably say, oh gosh, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd like to look it up. I don't know. Yeah, look it up for me.
Do they still have that restaurant, the Refractory?
Oh, yeah. You've been there?
Oh, my gosh.
That place is rich, isn't it?
Is 860,000.
Yeah.
So basically, I've seen 3 cool real estate deals in my life, like outside church. So the Catholic Church has lost a lot of property with all these lawsuits and settlements. And plus, downtown areas, the people went to the suburbs, and now it's a decayed area. And somebody bought up an old Catholic church and turned it into a restaurant.
French, amazing.
Oh my God, it's the coolest deal. I mean, someone who went to Catholic Mass every day from birth to 17, I thought that was the coolest experience.
Yeah.
You know another cool experience? Water's 8 pounds a gallon. And this guy, there was this big old water tank deal, and they didn't need it anymore. They went to pumps or whatever, and it was just an old water tank. Bought that, put an elevator to the top, cut out the deal, and made it a bar restaurant. And of course, it has the best view, because where do you put the water tank? Highest elevation, because gravity's doing the plumbing. Mm-hmm. And it was a bankrupt water tower. What do you call it? The water tower.
Perfect.
And where did you want to go after work to have a couple of drinks to see the whole damn town and the storms rolling in? And that water tower can be hit by a tornado. I mean, it's built to hold 8 pounds a gallon on this big tank. I mean, it's not moving.
Yeah.
It's not moving. And what was the other one I saw? But anyways, there's just been some really cool rules. So why most people would think, if you were born and raised in a town of 10,000, that when you got to big old city slicker Columbus with 860,000 people, you'd never leave. So why are you leaving?
I like Columbus. Columbus is nice,
How far a drive is it from your house?
2 hours.
2 hours?
2 hours from Columbus back home. And, when I was growing up as a kid, it was a huge treat to drive to Lima, Ohio, 30 minutes away and get Chipotle. It's like, oh man, we're going to get Chipotle. That's going to be awesome.
Oh, so we just got our first Chipotle.
Really?
Did we just get it? How long?
Yeah.
How long?
Oh man, maybe like 2 months ago.
2 months ago. Yeah. I didn't even see it.
So that was a huge thing, and now there's a Chipotle on every corner. It seems like in Columbus. So, but, there's things like that, but at the end of the day, I want to know my neighbors. I want to do business with people that I know I'm going to see often, or I'll do business with a guy who's a lawyer, and then when I need help with my will, he'll help me with that. I'll do business with somebody that works at the Performing Arts Center, and then when I think that there's something interesting that could be done there, they can do that. I just like the whole idea that my home community actually feels like a community. Here in Phoenix, you always talk about how like Ahwatukee's its own, kind of town. And, you could say maybe Glendale's so huge, but maybe there's areas of it in neighborhoods. I like that my whole town just feels that way. And, growing up, my mom is from rural northwest Iowa. And then my dad was born and raised in Wert. So they were both rural people. So when my mom moved back there, she had no problem moving there. And as I was growing up, and the biggest thing, his dad, my grandpa, was a hunter. He liked to hunt, he liked to camp, he was an outdoorsman. They didn't travel a lot. They didn't do much more than outdoorsman stuff. My dad hated it. He was like, the thing that I'm going to do with my kids, they're going to see the world. So by the time I was 18, I had been on like 5 of the 7 continents. I had been all over the world. When I was 10 years old, my dad took me to Egypt. And we climbed inside pyramids and stuff. The coolest thing about that Egypt trip is the U.S. declared war in Iraq, like I think March 23rd, and our flight took off March 24th, 2003. So we were there right after that war had started, and we were supposed to be in this big tour group of like 20 people. Me and my dad were the only ones that showed up, and it was great because I had a tour guide all to myself. We had this bus all to ourselves. Coolest thing I ever did in my life. So, my dad has taken me all over the world. I've done all these cool things, and he's taken me to like, he just last year was the president of the Ohio Dental Association.
Damn.
So, yes.
For the whole state?
Yeah, for the whole state.
Your dad was?
Yeah, and that's how I figured out that you're going to be at our ODA convention here, and I think it's like next year or something.
I am?
Yeah, so I'm excited to...
Is that in Columbus?
Yeah, it's in Columbus.
Well, will you take me to the refractory?
Yeah, let's go to the refractory.
Well, will you really?
Yeah, let's go. That'd be so great.
Okay.
I haven't been there in a long time because I only go when Dad's...
Okay, well, when I come in...
let's go.
Yeah, it'll be with Ryan. The 3 of us go to the refractory.
Let's go. That sounds great. But yeah, so, I just like the hometown feel of working in a community and the people that See, the other thing is the business is super attractive because the patients that I'm treating, most of them have been coming to us for 80 years. Their grandparents, their great-grandparents, their kids. That's exciting to me. I don't think there's anything else more meaningful to me. So, like, even when I get to assist and people are looking at me like, oh, you're going to be my dentist in the future, that feels so good. That's so exciting. Yeah, it's so exciting to go and run a family business and hopefully make a lot of changes to it for the better and make it grow even more and serve even more of the community.
Well, that's the heritage of communities and culture is family business. Like, if you were born in Asia and your father was a goat farmer, well, I mean, a quarter of the people would be goat farmers.
Yeah.
In fact, even the last names, like Smith, you were a blacksmith. I mean, Farran means a baker.
Okay.
When I lecture, me and Ryan have lectured in, how many colleges? 5, 6? You've been to 6?
I've been to 5.
And, in any dental school room, raise your hand if someone else in your family is a dentist.
Almost.
A quarter to a third of the hands go up.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been in homes where, where they have the nuclear family, where the whole tribe lives together. We were at one house in San Paulo, 35 dentists in the family. And I think we were in India, the record there was 27 dentists in a family.
Wow.
And they all lived in one big communal home. Well, it's kind of not really. I mean, it's not like the American sense where it's a home with defined deals. I mean, it'd be like this stairway and up left and that door.
Right.
It's just, they're more.
My hometown is a sister city in Japan, and I've got to go there twice and like stay in homes with families there.
Wow.
And that's been really cool to stay in like traditional, because this is in like rural Japan, not in the city. So to see how the grandparents and maybe even uncles and aunts all live together in the same home and how that works is really, really cool. One point I wanted to go back to is you made a point about how, like if you're Navajo, you're going to go work on the Indian reservation, things like that. Something that's been really exciting about my college, the Ohio State College of Dentistry, is that I don't know if this was our dean or if it was a whole group, but next year's class, and for all the classes that come after it, they're adding 10 spots in the class that are solely for people who are from underserved counties in Ohio. So those are the only people that are going to get into those 10 spots because they've done all this research.
They need to do it. They need to do it for all the dental schools for 10 years.
Yes, that's what really needs to happen.
Yeah, and with MDs too, registered nurses, even engineers.
Yep.
So my dad's big deal. Your dad liked to travel around the world.
Yeah.
My dad liked amusement parks and places that made stuff.
Okay.
So every family vacation, like we'd go to St. Louis, we'd go to like Six Flags over St. Louis, then go to the Budweiser factory. I saw Coors Beer made. We went to Detroit, and actually the station wagon we bought, Dad only bought it because they set up a golf cart tour so he could pull his 7 kids down the assembly line while they were making our station line. We
That's
saw
cool.
it come off the end. It was damn cool. And I saw cheese and he just loved to see stuff made. And so for my kids, how many places did I drag you to where they made stuff?
Oh, tons.
Tons. When we were one vacation, we took an RV and we drove from Phoenix to San Diego, then drove up all the way the coast to Canada.
Very cool.
So our vacation was the west, the Pacific Ocean.
Yep.
From Mexico to Canada, and we'd stop at like L.A., like 1-800-Dentist and Glidewell, and Jim Glidewell was so adorable. Here he is giving my 4 little baby munchkin boys a tour as if they were a dentist.
Yeah.
We went to see Kevin Austin's where they made ADEC dental chairs, where old-fashioned deal, where at one end was just raw wood and pellets and plastic beads, and at the other end came out ADEC chairs. But in every one of those small towns, I asked them, well, what is your biggest problem for growth? Thinking, is it competition? Is it overseas? Is it price? It was always attracting engineers, talent, programmers. And again, all the schools, if you're applying to engineering school, what are they looking at? Your grades in calculus and physics and geometry.
Yep.
When here's these towns of 10,000 making ADEC chairs, they're like, we don't have any engineers. And if you'd accept that kid from an engineer from our town that maybe only had a 2.8 grade point average,
yeah,
but he'd come back and we'd grow our business. But the number one limiting rate of growth in every single dental company I'd ever visited in a town of under 25,000 was HR. Mm-hmm. Because the universities are obsessed with having the highest scores of acceptance, so that on U.S. News and World Report, our university ranks #1, and they ought to shut down that magazine and shut down that list and put the rural community who pays half the taxes. They need to make it a priority, and it's just it's sad that they couldn't do that. So how many operatories does your dad have?
6.
Oh, okay.
No, 5. There are
5.
3 operative, 2 hygiene.
3 op and 2 hygiene. And does he own his own land and building?
Yep,
or does
owns
he
his own land and building. It was an old Wells Fargo bank. The Wells Fargo wanted to move. He took the Wells Fargo bank, kept the ATM on it. So there's a Wells Fargo ATM, so he can go right over, put his money in, and also they pay him rent to use it. So
my gosh, in 2008, it was so cool. So many of those banks went under, and they had too many locations. And I know dentists who got an old bank. The banks would come in Phoenix and buy that hot intersection corner for $400,000 to $600,000. Yep. Put a $400,000 to $500,000 building on that, and then they'd pick it up in distressed properties. They'd pick up the whole thing for $500,000, but then sign the bank a 10-year lease to keep the drive-through, so they have the ATM. Yep. And then the smartest ones, and I noticed they were always Indians. Americans are Indians, because that's the engineering mafia of America. Most of your engineers. So the Indians, through friend of a friend of a friend, knew someone in the cell phone tower business who then put a cell phone tower on that bank building.
Beautiful.
For Verizon or what have you. Yeah. And I know a couple of dentists who bought the building, and after they signed the 10-year lease for the ATM machine and the 10-year lease for the cell phone tower, wrote like $5,000 a month cash flow property. I mean, it's like if they didn't build a dental office, they're already making $60,000 a year. I mean, how cool is that? Cool. So the only thing you're missing now is a cell phone.
Yes.
You got to get the cell phone.
The big thing
tower.
I want to get in is in my hometown. There's tons of windmills for like generating electricity. The giant windmills, because it's very flat land. So I want to get some of that, because the big investment that my dad made was in farmland. So we have about 200 acres of farmland now, and I really want to get some windmills on the farmland.
What are they growing on the farm?
We grow, it alters year by year for the soil. So we grow soybeans, and then we'll grow corn, and then sometimes we'll grow wheat, but not very often. So it's usually soybeans and corn.
And you just flip it for the soil maintenance.
Yep.
So soybean, corn, and
wheat.
And what's the most profitable, soybean, corn, or
soybean?
Wheat? Soybean's the most profitable.
Yep.
But you know what? I think those big windmills. I always wonder, are they doing that for physics and electricity? Or are they doing that to maintain the that electricity made on a grid? Because when I grew up in Kansas, all the windmills were smaller than this table to pump water out of the ground for cattle and horses.
Okay.
So I think the real money would be, why doesn't that make electricity? Because then you could have one on every house. But I think, maybe I'm jaded, but I think they want to build all these monster ones so that you still have to use your utility company, APS and SRP and all these big deals. But to me, it seems like the, I don't know if there's, because I'm a dentist, I don't know this space, but I don't know if it's because they're trying to maintain their need as a utility. And I always thought, my God, man, in Kansas, there's windmills everywhere. I love windmills.
Me too.
And my mom's addicted to lighthouses. She travels on vacations just to see a lighthouse and get the miniature lighthouse memento, and her home's cluttered with lighthouse trinkets. But I love windmills, but I always wonder, why doesn't every little house have a windmill? Because I like what Tesla's doing, where instead of putting those ugly solar panels on the roof, they're making them into tiles.
Right.
So now there's homes that have roof tiles where the average person driving down the street doesn't know that's all solar.
Right.
So the aesthetics is a deal, but there's no sun at night. So it seems like if you had solar during the day going into a Tesla car battery hanging in your garage and a windmill on the top of your house.
That's the real sustainability.
For wind blowing.
Yeah.
But so have you looked into the windmill deals?
Oh, yeah.
So there's probably a lot of tax credits on it.
There's a ton of tax credits. They pay you a yearly amount to have it. Yeah, it would be a great thing to get into.
So are you and your dad going to do that?
I don't know. We tried when it first happened, so now when they want to do another installment, we're
well, it's the next big thing. I think the next big thing is going to be driverless cars. I think the next big thing is going to be getting off the grid for electricity. I think individual houses are going to have their own grid. And if everybody would open up their Wi-Fi instead of having a password, you wouldn't even need Verizon.
Right.
I mean, I don't know why they just don't. I mean, because if you have a password because you're trying to protect yourself from a hacker, ask a friend of yours that hacks how long it takes him to get into your Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
What do you think he'll say?
About 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody has to use Verizon because everybody doesn't take off their password for their Wi-Fi.
Right.
And the hacker. So gosh. So what questions did you have for me?
Okay, so I took a lot of notes over the 30 days. So essentially what I'm going to do is just go through them and see, because the whole question, the original email I sent you was, have you done, an updated lecture on this MBA? And I get an email back from Ryan first that, I think this would be a good subject. Let's do a podcast on it.
Really, Ryan?
Yeah. And then 10 minutes later, I get an email from you saying, I don't think much has changed. Business is business. And I was like, okay, that's funny. So I guess the thing...
Because it's true, like what's changed in geometry, trig, and algebra?
Not much. And so when I was sitting here actually trying to think of some questions, it was hard because I'm like, a lot of these principles still kind of count. When you think about, if you had to say, what do you think there have been any major changes in global healthcare macroeconomics or dental macroeconomics since the time you recorded?
Yes.
What would you say they are?
Okay, so...
Because the big thing you talked about was like the single high-price market stratification.
Yeah, I think the... gosh, you're never supposed to talk about religion, sex, politics, or violence. It's going to get
This is Dentistry Uncensored.
This is going to get pretty political. But, communism and socialism is really a failed ideology. But a lot of people on Earth don't believe that. But let's take housing. I mean, look at housing. There's people living in trailers. Apartments, 1, 2, or 3 bedroom, condos, 1 bedroom house, 2 bedroom. The most liquid house in Phoenix is a 3 bedroom, 2 bath. You sell that in a week. By the time you get to 5 bedroom, 5,000 square foot or greater, right now for like a year or two, you have an illiquid asset. And these NBA and these NFL players, one of the single biggest mistakes they do is now they're making $10 million a year and their trophy wife decides to build this 13 bedroom purple house with a 9-car garage, these weird pool tables. And what they don't realize is people with that much money want to build their own stuff. Mm-hmm. They don't want your stuff. Mm-hmm. So they're all illiquid assets, And but the market segment is so broad.
Even more so today than when you recorded back in 2000?
Oh, yeah. And the same, well, no, for housing and cars, it's the same.
Okay.
I mean, look at cars. You have a driverless car, you have a 2-seater, you have a 3-seater, an SUV, a truck, a Ford, all the way to a Lamborghini. There's like 15, 20 different price points for a house or a car. And then government idiots think that healthcare, there's just going to be one thing. So when Jimmy Carter built the Department of Education, let's just say he built that for the Department of Fast Food Hamburgers. Just pick your franchise. Say it's McDonald's. That means there'll be no Burger King, no Wendy's, no Carl's Jr., no nothing else, no In-N-Out Burger, no what's the one, White Castle Burger. So it just kills all innovation. And every time the government gets involved, they kill all innovation. Innovation stops, service stops. And I think what people can't grasp in healthcare is that one of the reasons dentistry has been so good is because, let's say someone's going to lose all their teeth, and the only way to save them is all on four, 2 arches, 25 grand an arch. And you say, well, I just don't have $50,000 for an all on 4. Well, then let's get an all on none and do a full mouth. What's a full set of dentures cost in your town?
I think it's $2,500.
So we have the $50,000 Mercedes-Benz car, just like you can buy a $50,000 Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
But we have a $2,500 used car.
Yeah.
We have a $2,500 denture, and there needs to be that type of deal. You have government insurance where what's the copayment when grandma goes with her Medicare to the hospital?
I don't know.
None.
So
she has no skin in the game. So she's in Columbus, and a new set of knees is going to cost 50 grand.
Yeah.
But if she had to pay 5% copayment, her copayment would be $2,500. $2,500 lots of ground. So she might be calling Van Wert, Ohio, and find out that the guy in Van Wert charges $35,000 for a set of knees, and now 5% of 35,000 is 0.05 is 1,750. So she's like, well, my gosh, 2,500 minus 1,750, I'll save $750 driving 2 hours to Van Wert.
Right.
And then they'll have a deal with a little bed and breakfast next door,
right,
and a hotel deal,
so,
and so it's going to be different price points because you might value 2 brand new knees more than me. I might say, I don't want you to screw in my knees. I'll just eat Advil, ibuprofen. But in healthcare and government, they still don't understand that every person has to have skin in the game.
Right.
Like you go to every free dental clinic in America, and you go in there.
How many missed appointments are there?
50% no-show.
Right.
Well, if you had to take $5 to make an appointment, and if you canceled, you don't get the $5 back, and the next appointment make it be 10.
Right.
And the next one be 15 and 20 until you price them out to make an appointment. And then all the liberal socials like, well, you can't charge him $10 because he's poor. It's not right or wrong. You don't manage humans that way.
Right.
You don't manage animals at Yellowstone National Park by giving them free food and a doghouse to live in.
Right.
Because now that wolf doesn't even know how to hunt.
Right.
America manages their national park animals better than their own human animals.
In day 2 of the dental MBA, when you're talking about dental macroeconomics, you were talking about this, about how the single high price market segmentation is kind of making it hard for people to get taken care of at all aspects, and that's when government gets involved, and that's when it gets inefficient, and that's what would hurt us. And you said that as a dental profession, we need free enterprise to get involved. And you talked about, like managed care and HMOs. So from 2000 to today, have you seen what's the progress on free enterprise getting involved on increasing access to care? What are your thoughts on the dental macroeconomics and,
Well, back to the number one problem in healthcare macroeconomics, dental, medical, pharmaceutical, is that when free enterprise doesn't serve a large group of people, it's a market failure. So then those people ask the government to step in.
Right.
So when you don't take care of business, you ask for the government. Same thing with policing. Like police departments are notorious for not knowing. Tribes don't turn in their own. Like my 2 older sisters, Catholic nuns, all the priests knew 1% were bad apples, but they didn't say anything.
Right.
So then law enforcement had to come in. Penn State, same phenomena. Everybody at Penn State knew what was going on, but they didn't do anything. What's the latest one? Harvey Weinstein.
Right.
Everyone in Hollywood knew what was going on. So tribes don't turn on themselves, and then dentists get mad when some dentist looks at just some horrific dentistry and says, you need to go to the board. They're like, dude, but he's another dentist. Well, do you want to police your own dentist, or do you want a third party, the government, the board, to get involved? So you have to police your own. So the biggest problem with dentists is and market segmentation, they don't treat the poor, because when they treat the poor, they want to go in and make a Cadillac, and they're getting reimbursed for a used car, Medicaid. And so they, what percent of dentists don't do amalgam? They go, well, I morally, ethically, I can't do an amalgam. I mean, I would, what would Jesus do? And Jesus would not do an amalgam. Dude, an amalgam lasts 38 years.
Yeah.
It's antibacterial, and it costs $1. But now you're going to do a composite, and you got to numb up, place a rubber dam, pack cord, use all this. It takes freaking a half an hour. And then Medicaid only gives you a little bit amount of money, so you lose the money, so now you don't do Medicaid. Well, ask all those poor people if they would have rather had a poor amalgam. And they're like, and the other thing, like, okay, I'm a dentist. I've been talking to you for, gosh darn, 50 minutes. I still haven't seen a bicuspid or a molar. I just see 6 teeth.
Yep.
So who gives a shit if number 1 and 2 are black? When dentists tell me, well, you know what, I don't like zirconia in the molars. It's not translucent enough. I like Emax. It's like, why don't you just say you have a head injury?
Yeah.
Do you think anybody's ever seen a man's molar?
No.
That Emax or now if you were a skinny girl, low fat body, big smile that showed gums, and you were a model and you were making happy face on Instagram, maybe.
Yeah.
But for every man on earth, no. I mean, they're just irrational. So back to market segmentation. When you say you can't take Medicaid or Medicare, it's not Medicaid's problem. It's that you're trying to sell a gosh darn Cadillac for the price of a Chevy.
Yep.
And hygienists. If you say to your hygienist, Southwest Airlines takes its total cost. Planes, labor, pilots, gas, buying the plane, and they reduce it to flying a seat through the sky for a mile. And they say, this is how much our chair costs for a mile. And we've been doing that for our dental chairs for 30 years. This is how much our room costs for an hour. No dentist knows this cost to fly that plane through an hour. So if this room costs $80 an hour, and this insurance is only going to give, say, $40 for a cleaning, then the problem isn't that they don't pay enough. The problem is that you don't tell your hygienist, this is a 30-minute cleaning. Right. And she says, well, we don't do 30 minutes cleaning. We only sell a Mercedes-Benz cleaning.
Right.
Well, that's not the poor people's fault. That's not the insurance company's fault. That's the hygienist's fault. And then you say, well, why don't you do this? The dentist doesn't set up the room, seat the patient, take the x-rays. Why don't we take the hygienist and get her a $10 an hour helper, and the $10 an hour helper will set up the room, go get the patient, go seat the patient, and then you come in when you peri-probe, she'll chart, you do the scaling, and then when you're done, you leave, she'll go over there and she'll polish, she'll give the fluoride treatment, she'll write up the chart, she'll dismiss them, then she'll clean up their room. Can you change out your Lamborghini Mercedes Cadillac for the price? And they said, no, can't do it. Can't do it. I'm an extremist. That's not dentistry that Jesus would do, and not going to do it. Okay, so now you have a market failure.
Right.
So now when you get 10, 20, 30, 40 million people without health insurance or dental insurance, then when Bernie Sanders starts walking around saying, we'll give it to you for free, even though there's no such thing as free. And I'm like, hey, Bernie, what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to arrest all the dentists and hygienists and take them to dental prisons and lock them up and we have to work there for free? Oh, no. We'll still pay you. So where's the money come from?
Right.
Pluto, Krypton. So what I suggest for industries is not give the government a reason to get involved, because it all comes down at the end of the day is checks and balance.
Right.
Because if you had no checks and balance on the dentists and they owned all the insurance companies, they'd want to come in every Monday and do one crown for $25,000 and then go home for the rest of the week.
Right.
And they don't even realize that. Like they'll say, well, why do the dental schools keep increasing classes? Well, if you raise your tuition $10,000 a year and then still sold out your next year's class, and then the next year raise it $10,000 and sold out your class. I mean, what if the dentists, every time they doubled their crown fee, they had no impact? There was no price elasticity on their crown. The dentists would keep raising their crown fees, but they're mad at the dental school deans for doing it.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. So One of the big things that you highlight throughout a lot of the 30-day MBAs, you talk about your wage-weighted profit sharing that you use. Can you review that for those out there that haven't listened to the program that would benefit from learning about that?
Basically, if you go to school 4 years to be an engineer or a registered nurse or a hygienist, and your sister went and got a job as a clerk at Starbucks. Mm-hmm. They have different amounts of drive and ambition for money. Yeah. So the number one thing on bonuses is that the lowest paid people aren't driven by money. They're driven by love, words. You work through lunch, here's movie passes, Starbucks pass, or here's $20. They like their environment, they like the team. But as you make more and more money, like for instance in a dental office, your associate dentist is the most motivated by money. Mm-hmm. They will jump through fire hoops to get a bonus. Right. So what I tend to do is 20 years ago, I used to have an even bonus system. Mm-hmm. And then it took me a long time to realize it just didn't matter. So what I did for the lower waged people is a cash bonus. I'll tell you, who's
you had your 3 profit goals, right?
Who's the greatest? Who's the guy that had at one time 9 out of the 10 heavyweight champion boxers of the world? Worked for him. He had the white hair straight up.
Oh my gosh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember his name.
Who was that guy? He had Mike Tyson. Everybody. Don King. Don King taught me. I learned this from Don King. I learned it from his movie, and that is there'd be all these rich sports people saying to these poor kids who weren't financially literate, who didn't go to college, they grew up in a boxing gym, the wrong side of town. They'd say, well, if you do this, you're going to fight, I'm going to get you all this money, and then 30, 60, 100 days from now, or the fight's not for 6 months, you're going to get this big paycheck. Don King would say, well, you sign with me? And they'd say, why should I sign with you? And he'd hand them a sack. And the sack would have $50,000 in 20s. They go, holy shit! And they'd sign. So what I do with the assistants is I went every month and I'd say, okay, here's what we got to do to pay our bills. You get a salary. Do this amount. We collect this amount. I'll give you 1 Benjamin. Yep. This amount, 2 Benjamin. This amount, 3 Benjamin. My 80% of the team, they would crush it. And then when I gave them 3 Benjamin, see, if I gave them a paycheck and then took out taxes, and then I gave them a deal. Well, they're married, they go home, it goes into the joint check. It's not fun and sexy. Right. But when they'd make bonus every time, probably 11 out of 12 months they make the bonus number. They get 3 Benjamins. Those 3 Benjamins made them more excited, just like a heavyweight championship guy giving a sack of cash. Right. And then all the professionals in suits and ties are like, why would they go with Don King? Why? He's screwing them on the deal. Well, maybe in your mind, but maybe this guy today, what he wanted more than anything was to go home to his lover with a sack of cash.
Well, because just like you said, billionaires focus not on trigonometry and calculus and all this. They focus on people and knowing what people want, and that's very much who are these employees? What do they want? What kind of people they are? This is what they want.
But I got 50 people, right? And my management team, so I got 7 department managers. Okay. And you have to, that's where all the big bonus money goes. Okay. Because those people, today is Saturday. I'm working. I know all of them are working. These are people that are sending me emails on Sunday night. Those people. So once you get to 6 figures, those people are totally, and a lot of people look at them and say workaholics. A lot of people say, you spend so much time on Dentaltown. How do you do it? Well, I don't watch TV. So when I look at the data on Americans are spending about 4 hours a day on TV. Why? I didn't watch an episode of Friends. I didn't watch Frasier. What was
Game of Thrones?
I don't know what Game of Thrones is. Yeah. I know. So I don't know. Like when I emailed you back. Yeah. And I made a relationship with you. That's more fun for me than watching Game of Thrones. Right. I just don't get it. Like I've had 3 dentists this week asked me if I wanted to go see the Star Wars movie with them. And I'm just like, okay, I'm sure that's fun and that's cool, but I'd rather talk to you for an hour and a half than watch.
You're in Dental Mania. That's what you tell us. You tell us that we need to get into dental.
I just think it's more fun. I don't think it's workaholics. I mean, I have friends that are full-blown addicted to Netflix.
Yeah.
And they'll come into a series, and it'll be like 7 or 8 seasons. And I don't know how many shows are in a season, but they'll sit there and say, oh my God, I started watching this, and it was so amazing. And it was like 4 hours a night after work, and then 8 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday, and it took me like 2 weeks to kill it. And I'll say, so now what are you doing? Oh, I found another one. And I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I only have that relationship with like the NFL. I mean, I can never make fun of anybody watching Miami Housewives, because at least with Miami Housewives, you know why Charlene is mad at Jamal.
Yes.
I have no idea why I went the Cardinals to kill, the Raiders.
But
I want him to.
Yeah.
At least, so it's my silliest, stupidest vice, but I love it, and I wish I actually had that. But what other questions?
Okay, so you do day 6 is all about group practice, how great group practice is, and you talk about AFTCO. Is AFTCO still the powerhouse? Is that the company that I should still be trying to like make a relationship for the future when I want to sell or transition or something like that? Is who is the powerhouse in acquisitions and things like that in that company?
We need to reach out. So AFTCO stands for Alan F. Thornburg.
Right. And
he wanted to have a little boy named Alan Jr., but it was a girl, so her name is Alana. Love her to death. I would say that those questions are so politics.
Yes.
It's all local.
Right.
So what I would do is the reason I built Dentaltown, I would get on Dentaltown and I would be transparent. That's the problem that most monkeys don't have. Most monkeys don't like checks and balances, and they don't want transparency. They want everything private, so they're going around whispering to other little friends. For 20 years, I've seen dentists come out of school and sit there and say, I'm going to buy a practice in Missouri. Who's the best broker? And some guy might come on and say, AFTCO. And then the next guy say, no. AFTCO believes in dual representation, so they just want to get the deal done, so they're representing the buyer and the seller. Well, no one's representing you. You want someone to represent you. Now, Alan F. Thornburg would tell me I'm an idiot, and he has sold over $1 billion of dental offices, and nobody's sold more dental offices than Alan. But what's cool about Dentaltown is you're not taking my word for it. You're not taking Alan's word for it. You're taking a community's consensus on it. And then what happens is you flush out a lot of talent. Like some dental consultant in Ohio that you never even heard of gets on and say, you know what, here's what I think. I think you should use Mr. Cranston. He was born and raised in Columbus.
Yeah.
He sold all these offices, blah, 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 blah. And I'll tell you another thing. I have watched some of the greatest dental legends. A lot of the legends today grew up on Dentaltown. Samir Puri, the Sirac Masters at Spear Center, Tarun Agarwal, so many of these guys. And the only reason they made their own luck, because while most everyone just reads on Dentaltown like a newspaper, they had the foresight to say, why do I care what anybody thinks of me? I'm going to go on and ask a question. Hey, my name's Samir Puri. I'm thinking about doing this or that. And then he was a young kid out of school, and the whole fraternity of Dentaltown's trying to guide this kid. Mm-hmm. And he went from a baby to the top of his game inside of 10 years. Same thing with Tarun Agarwal. And then as everybody's watching these kids and falling in love with them, everybody's helping them. Everybody's opening doors for them. So they just rise right to the top. Whereas your innate, and we call them on Dentaltown super users, and it's not just on Dentaltown. It's research super users. So if you go into a programming community, electrical engineering community, any community, even Facebook, you have 500 friends. 5 of them are the ones posting all day long, and most of them are lurking, except for maybe on their birthday or their anniversary dinner.
So the biggest thing that's probably changed since when you recorded this is there are things like Dentaltown now. There are these Facebook groups. Yeah. There's all these ways to now communicate within the entire.
So like a guy will say, here's a guy who's not sure if he's a lurker or a super user. He's like, how much do you think I should buy a dental practice? Would you say it's 1 year's sales or 6 times EBITDA? How would you value it? Here's the smart guy. Hey, my name is Bob Laing. I'm going back to Wert, Ohio. There's 2 practices for sale. This one, here's the address, here's a broker, it collected this much money and it's selling for this much. And the other one's at this address and it's asking for that. Totally specific. So now people out of the woodwork saying, dude, look, I practice in the next county. You buy Adam's office, you're gonna be doing warranty work for 10 years. Make sure in your contract you say, if this work has failed and I redo it, you'll put a price, and why don't you put this much in escrow? Or the other guy might say, no, but the people who are the most specific and transparent, and basically here's the way I rationalize my brain. A lot of people say that they don't post because they're afraid someone's going to say something.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
So humans are 2 million years old. 100 billion already died. Mm-hmm. There's 7.5 billion alive today. So 6.5% of every human that's ever lived is alive today, and the other 93.5% are dead.
Yeah.
You're never going to make eye contact with 99.99% of all the humans alive. So you're going to spend your whole life worrying about what everyone thinks when 96 of everyone's already dead, and you'll never meet 99% of the living ones, but you're afraid to ask a question because some guy might say something and make you run into the other room and cry.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm thick-skinned. It's I don't give a shit.
You put it in perspective.
I don't spend my whole life wondering what Charlie Rose thinks.
Yeah.
I don't care. And it's not that I don't care and I don't have feelings. I'm so damn busy, I don't have time to think about what Mr. Cranston thinks of what I said on podcast 250.
Right. Okay.
And if you think that I'm dumb enough to think that you agree with everything I say, I mean, the only thing that I want you to agree with is that there's only one thing I can tell you that is true. And that is, I'm the only normal dentist on earth. So just remember that. So if you disagree with me, you're Abby normal. You're Dr. Abby normal. Yeah. But yeah, so I would be, so my advice to graduates are the most successful dentists who reach all their goals and dreams the fastest, easiest, highest quality, lowest price were on the message board, transparent. But you know where they'll post? They'll post on Facebook. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, how many friends do you have on your Facebook?
I don't know. I'd say 2,000 maybe.
Okay, so Dentaltown has 250,000 dentists.
Right.
So in scales of economy, is that one special dental consultant in Ohio more likely to be on Dentaltown or in your Facebook group?
Right.
Is that person who knows that if you buy that practice that guy's been to drug rehab 3 times, he's got 3 ex-wives, and he's been using Sargenti root canals, and they're all short, and his you know what I mean? The scales of economy. And then here's the other thing on Facebook. If you're a cosmetic dentist and you believe that amalgam is evil and only Satan uses it, and you go in their group and say, well, you should have done an amalgam. I mean, come on, it's a class 5. She has Alzheimer's. She's not aware of her existence. She doesn't know her children's own teeth. And an amalgam class 5 root service will probably last 5 years. And your stupid, inert plastic, cosmetic, translucent bullshit fellowship in the Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry is full of shit. Well, they just delete you.
Right.
So they delete everyone until they're in their Fox News bubble, or their CNN bubble, or their cosmetic dentistry bubble. Whereas in Dentaltown, you come in there in your little bubble, and you're like, well, I don't believe in amalgam. And then the next guy's like, well, that's because you're an idiot. And then blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, oh my God, I'm butthurt. I'll never post again. Someone said something mean. And doctors and physicians and lawyers, they have big egos. So Dentaltown is a brutal force for someone who all their employees call them doctor. They go home, they're the breadwinner. Everybody caters to the king. Mm-hmm. And then you get on Dentaltown and some other dentist goes, I'll call you on your own shit, dude.
Right.
An amalgam class 5 on a dementia lady who has rheumatoid arthritis and can't brush her teeth in a nursing home. My amalgam, your composite will last 6 months. My amalgam lasts 5 years. So thus I am 10 times a better dentist than you, and then drops the mic.
Yeah. Okay. Two more subject areas. I think one of the biggest ones that I think could use an update from 2000 to today is you have one where you talk about creating a management information system. So now with all these different softwares, with Dentrix, Eaglesoft, and then you've mentioned, did you transition to Open Dental?
I did.
So can you talk about, to educate me, like I grew up helping in a dental office, yet I really didn't know anything about what kind of reports I should run. I'm the kind of person that doesn't know how all these different systems work. What do you use? How do you use your Open Dental? What are the most important reports? How would you update the creating a management information system segment?
So programming is either closed, like Apple,
right?
In dentistry, like Dentistry Uncensored, like their CERAC machine. It's a closed system.
You have to have every part of it. There's no editing.
Yeah,
right.
and that doesn't work with any other system. Even when they say it's open, it's not.
Right.
And then you have open systems like Google. Now, there's pros and cons to everything. With an open system, like when I update the Dentaltown app and the Orthotown app on the Google Android store, it's approved in a minute. When I send in to update the Apple app, it takes a long time, and they're nitpicking, and they're doing this. So there's closed and open, there's pros and cons.
Yes.
It's not right or wrong, it's just pros and cons. Dentrix is a closed system. So is Eaglesoft. So the dentist has all their accounting over here. We use Peachtree. There's Great Plains Accounting that Microsoft bought. There's all kinds of accounting softwares. Programming has gotten faster, easier, cheaper. So like, say you're a programmer, you work for me, and I tell you to write this source code. First thing programmers do is they go to these programming websites and communities and search, does anybody have a source code for a shopping cart checkout,
right,
like on an Amazon type feature? Oh shit, yeah.
And they can plug and
They're
chug.
cut and paste.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody, so if you Google Dentrix or Eaglesoft, the only people that love it are the ones that have no business acumen. They don't know their overhead, their return equity. They don't know any of their cost. They don't know anything about business. If someone really is concerned about business, says they love Dentrix or Eaglesoft, that's just crazy. So the movement, the fastest growing movement is Open Dental, and I can prove that also because I own a media company. Dentrix and Eaglesoft, they're always buying ads in magazines and websites. They're always advertising. Open Dental doesn't advertise because it's growing too fast. Mm-hmm. The last thing, it took me a year to get the CEO, Nathan Sparks, to come on the show because I don't want to draw a bunch of attention to it. Right. Every time we turn around, there's just more business.
So busy.
So yeah, so now what's going to be moving, you still don't have a system. The only people that have the systems or DSOs, like Stephen Thorne, when he got out of school, when he started Pacific, he bought a license to an existing practice management software, and then hired a bunch of programmers. And for 20 years, as he's gone from 0 to 500 offices, he's built all those internal systems.
So they have their own internal system. Yeah. They don't use...
And so does Heartland and on all these people. You don't have the skills economy. Now that Open Dental is the mainstream, and of all the people that are business savvy, sophisticated, are moving to Open Dental, and they don't advertise, and I don't get any money for that or anything. But now, for the first time, bunches of people are looking at that code, and then looking at their accounting, whether it be QuickBooks, QuickBooks Pro. I've been on Peachtree accounting. I got an MBA. You can't run the Fortune 500 on Quicken, right, or QuickBooks Pro. They all use SAP, but SAP is too expensive for a dental office. But so I would say, in answer to your question, it's still not available now. What I recommend now is that you go to Open Dental and you go to at least QuickBooks Pro, and you hire your front desk people. Instead of saying, oh, well, she has 10 years experience in the dental office across the street. Right. 10 years experience in office, who never knows her costs or profitability, taking 9 different insurance, losing money on a third of their patients and don't even know it, to get bookkeepers. Because in my past, I can take a bookkeeper and train them what an insurance code is for a filling, root canal, and crown in a minute. But I can't take the girl who was at your front desk for 10 years. She's been on Dentrix. She comes to me, I say, well, how many reports does Dentrix have? 5, 10, 20, 30? How many reports does it have?
She says, I don't know.
So, I don't know. And I'm thinking, it's the mindset. So if you're a human. You were on this software for a decade, and your monkey paw never move the mouse to just go click reports and look at them one time and then go ask Doc, we have 50 reports. Do you want any of these around? See, that's a mindset. Some people have a mindset for sports or music. Like Ryan told me he wanted to play piano, so I bought him a piano when he was little. Took him to one lesson, he hated it. And then he came home by sound and he plays like Beethoven. And when he's playing, the whole piano shakes.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, I can't, and it just sounds, it's the most amazing
My
music in the
girlfriend's the
world.
same way. She had a teacher, and she hated the teacher, but she loved the piano. And then finally they found like an older lady who had never really taught piano before, so she'd just show up at her house. She'd say, oh, let's play whatever you want. And she still kills it on the piano. She picks it up, she looks at the music for a day, never needs it again, could just play it. That's amazing.
So you either have that knack for numbers
Right.
or you don't.
Or
And
you
when
don't.
you hire receptionists, some of the best ones in 30 years I stole from Chase Bank next door to me. You're making a deposit every day and you see this thing, just good with numbers. All bookkeepers love numbers. When I go to a dental office and they hire 3 assistants and one of them used to be a bookkeeper, I can teach her how to make it temporary. And then your supplies every month are 4.5%, you have a system. But you hire this assistant because she has 10 years experience. And she's an artist. She loves working with her hands. She loves cosmetics. She loves all that. But your supplies are 4% this month, 8% next month, 7%, 6%. It's all, there's no organization. So if you want a business, fill up your team with people who come from business.
Yeah. So you're telling me
Banking,
when we go and we
accounting.
start a new practice, or if I go home and start my practice, I should be going around to all the business places and trying to find somebody to...
I would go a step further. All my friends that I know that are millionaires, 100 millionaires, multi-billionaires, your 2 uncles, one year they did $1 billion, didn't they? Yeah, when they built they had the contract for the Wichita airport. I think that year they booked $1 billion, 350 employees out. Huge. By every multi-millionaire I know, by the time they got to their first 5 employees, one of them was a full-time bookkeeper. By the time they got to 10, 12, 13 employees, they had 2 full-time bookkeepers. So let's say you're in construction, and this was a freestanding building. This was a remodel. This was a fire damage house. This was an 8-apartment duplex. I need to know the cost, activity-based costing, activity-based management. And only bookkeepers could tell you, if you say to them, I'm in construction, I want an 8% net income. Well, you got to know all your costs.
Yeah.
And if you walked into any dental office and hired a bookkeeper and said, here's what you do. You hire a bookkeeper and say, when I get done doing a filling, I want you to tell me, did I make $9.12 after taxes or did I lose $15? Right. And when you don't have that, you're Stevie Wonder.
Right, blind.
And your whole life, you're just living in a mystery.
What makes a bookkeeper? Is that a degree somebody gets? Is that something they train in? What makes a bookkeeper? How do you find a bookkeeper?
Every CPA has bookkeepers. You just put an ad on Craigslist for a bookkeeper.
Okay.
I put an ad on for a bookkeeper, and I hired this little girl 20 years ago in the parking lot. I was running late on a root canal. She sat for the interview, and I was running late, and finally she walked out on me. And finally I got up front. I said, where is she? She goes, oh, she left. And I ran out the front door. I saw her in the parking lot, get in the car. I ran out there. I'm so sorry. She was pissed off. No, she's not taking that. So I finally convinced her to come work for me. 20 years later, she's the president of the company and makes more money than most dentists.
Wow.
And because, I'll give you another story. There's a lot of these stories, but I'll give you another one. In a whole different arena, you think of religion as nonprofit. Billy King just passed away. Reverend, what was his name? Billy Graham.
Billy Graham, yeah.
Billy Graham just died in 91.
Yeah.
So there's 19,000 towns. Every town. How many churches are in your town? You have a town of 10,000. How many?
How many? I would say more than 15.
Okay, so there's 6 dentists and 15 churches.
Yeah.
So he's on Larry King's show, and Larry King's like, okay, dude, there's 19,000 towns. Every one of them has a dozen churches. They're all reading the same book. Why are you Billy Graham? Why are you the man? Why are you the most famous? Why does everybody know your name and not hundreds of thousands of preachers and pastors in every small town in America? And he said, I'll tell you why. He says, because I was the reverend. I was reading the Bible. I was preparing the sermon, but I got me an inside man. And I hired an inside man. And when we started working, he came up to me. He says, Billy, Reverend Graham, when we build this church, did you want it to seat 100 or 200? He said, whoa, dude. He said, I'm reading the Bible. I'm preparing my sermon. That's your job. And if you don't know the answer to that, I mean, what are we collecting a month? What does this church cost? What's the electrical, land, building, rent, mortgage? And he said, that ain't my job. And if you're asking me, I got the wrong guy.
Right.
And you need to leave, and I need to find another guy. And the guy said, no. Cool. They shook hands, and he said, you never write my sermons, and I'm never going to do your numbers.
Okay.
So they had a full-time guy doing the business of religion, which if you said to any preacher, or my sister that's a nun, the business of religion, they'd think it's heresy and slap you.
But there's business.
But there's a business there.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't pay your money in incense, frankincense, and myrrh.
Right.
I mean, you need to use the coin.
Right.
And so when you get an office manager, if you hire someone who was a bank teller, a bookkeeper, she's going to know your house will be in order.
Okay.
And then when she reports to you, you just tell her, break-even point. What do we have to do today to pay all of her bills? And if she says, dude, you got to do $2,000. And then you say, well, the best dental offices run at 50% overhead. So that means we're going to do $2,000 before anybody goes to lunch. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to come back and do another $2,000. And we're going to do 50%. And then when we get to Friday, and we close at noon, but to be at 50% overhead, we're 4,000 short. Then we're going to open up Friday afternoon because maybe we'll get 2 toothaches and 2 people need a root canal, bill, and crown. 4,000, we're back on target.
Yeah.
And then when you tell your staff like that, and you think, well, as I start to get to the 4th week, and we're not going to make goal, then we're going to open up Saturday. When you start telling your staff that you're going to not get off noon at Friday or not take a 3-day weekend, you're going to open up Friday. Hell, you'll even take them Saturday. They start squeezing. They start scheduling faster, easier, tighter. Right. They'd rather work through a lunch than come in on their day off.
Right.
And when you're all transparent and you're all trustworthy and everybody feels safe to talk, when they said that when you can say something and your staff feels safe, say, well, Bob, I disagree.
Right.
I don't agree with you.
That's a big thing you push throughout the whole program.
If you want to surround yourself with yes man, you're going to walk off a cliff and your staff is all going to be standing on the cliff as you fall all the way down there and say, well, he never listened.
Right.
So you don't want yes people, but they're not gonna tell you the truth unless you make them feel safe.
Right. Okay. So then here's another big thing that you talk about in Dentistry Uncensored and that you talk about in the 30-day MBA is that, continuing education is a huge thing to, I just read your book, Uncomplicated Business. And the big thing you talk about is there's 3 things that you can invest in. And you said the number one most important thing you can invest in is your wetware. Your brain, your knowledge, what you can learn. So you've always been this big advocate of, pursuing your FAGD, pursuing your MAGD. Would you still say today, 18 years later from when you recorded this, that when I get out of dental school, one of the best investments I can make initially is pursuing these areas of continuing education?
So your dad is the president of...
Past president of the ODA, yeah.
Of the ODA. When you... join the AGD, and you go to get your fellowship, and you go on to get your mastership. What's cool is, how many dentists are in Ohio?
I don't know the number.
What would you guess?
What would I guess?
It's gotta be 12,000.
Yeah, I'd say 15.
Are you Googling it?
I'd say 15.
Yeah, 15,000. How many dentists are in Ohio? I wonder if Google would even know that. So of that 15,000, there's 30,000 members in the AGD, and I think only 12,000 got their FAGD, and only 2,000 got their MAGD, something like that.
Yeah.
So when you go to those courses, it's the people you meet. It's not so much that you went to the course, but now you're always going to be a summary of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So in your family, that's your girlfriend, your dad, your mom, your family, kids someday. But in your professional life, if you hang out with 5 dentists from school and they all think dentistry sucks, and they're burned out and they're fried and they hate it, You'll feel the same. But when you start running with AGD people, or you meet, when I go back and looked at spending 5 weeks at the Pankey Institute, or I think I went to Dawson 3 times, Coy several times, Spear, Mish, Ross Nash. It was great information, but God, meeting great friends.
It was the people.
And then you'd be sitting at lunch, and they're telling you, I mean, the course might be on endo, and they're talking about bone grafting, and then they're just always excited, and they're going for it, and that energy, birds of a feather flock together. So surrounding yourself with 5 people who just love dentistry, going for it. The Scouts Honor, they're just thirsty, clean, brave, rubber. They're just dental superstars.
Yeah.
It rubs off on you.
Yeah.
And that karma. But what this podcast actually came from my HD. I mean, I did 500 hours to get my FAGD, another 600 hours. That's 1,100 hours. And I thought to myself, I felt guilty because I was in Phoenix. There's 3.8 million in the metro. There's like 3,800 dentists in the valley. There's something going on every night in dentistry. But you know what? When you're in Parsons, Kansas, there might not be shit going on.
Right.
And you might be an hour away from a city that has a study club, and they have one meeting once a month, only 9 months out of the year, and half the time that's your local orthodontist or State Farm agent. And I thought to myself, the only thing I can bring to the table on a podcast is I can get amazing guests on. And from all variety, from people that are in dental school to, I've already got 3 podcasts where they've passed away.
Wow.
3 legends: Carl Mish, Bob Ibsen of Denmat, Mark Golis, the laser pediatric dentist of Chicago. So what I think's cool is that you need 100 hours. The dentist who took 100 hours a year of CE crushed it. Well, shit, I put out 365 hours a year while you're commuting to work. So I feel really good that I'm putting a lot of really great information, and not just in America, but Africa, Asia, Latin America. I mean, I get emails from all over the world of them just saying, the ones that are so special, they say, I'd have to work 3 months just to buy a plane ticket from Africa to LA to hear this person speak. And I just listen to them for an hour for free on my Samsung.
Yep.
And I just think, yes. And so it's making, so this technology, this wave I'm riding, so when I got out of high school, this was a mainframe computer made by IBM, this strength. And then when I got out of college, they came out with a microcomputer, and Bill Gates started making making software for microcomputers called Microsoft, microcomputer software. And then that was the big revolution. And now the computer's even stronger. In 2007, now it's in your pocket. So I went from only the Fortune 500 biggest companies had a mainframe. Now 2.5, 3 billion Earthlings have an IBM mainframe computer in their pocket. And so now we can transfer knowledge for almost zero cost, zero variable cost.
Right.
You already bought the fixed cost of your phone, and you're already paying the variable cost of the phone plan. And so the marginal cost of listening to my podcast on your smartphone on YouTube or Dentaltown, I mean, it's just the coolest thing.
Yeah. I could ask you questions all day, but I guess the biggest thing that I want to, maybe learn, and that other people who are listening to this MBA program, what do you think are the biggest changes in dental business? Not that, essentially, what do you think, I'm going to be selfish and ask a question just for me and people like me. What's the biggest piece of MBA business advice that kids like me who are graduating dental school need to know today?
Okay, so when I was your age, how old? You're 24.
I'm 24, yeah.
My God, I got kids that are, Ryan, how old are you? 24?
Yeah.
I got 2 kids older than you. People are always thinking that everything's changing. So, like the monkey went from talking to you to long distance making smoke signals to blowing horns, beating drums, all the way to the telegraph. The same wires of the telegraph were used for the telephone. The same wires for the telephone are used for the internet. The internet is really the telephone's really the telegraph 2.0, and the internet's the telegraph. So what doesn't change is the human, okay? And while all these people are going to always try to marginalize dentists and physicians for their own benefit, it's never going to happen with dentistry because, number one, when I go to every human on earth and I say, And I just end up with a clarity test. Let's just say, and thank you so much for bringing me these Buckeyes peanut butter and milk chocolate. You have to explain it first. What is the?
It's called a Buckeye because it looks like a Buckeye nut that comes off the Buckeye tree. And essentially what it is it's powdered sugar and peanut butter and some other stuff mixed together, and then it's got melted chocolate around it, and it's the most amazing, delicious thing.
So, if I walked up to any human on earth and I said, Bob, here's your only choice. You're going to die tonight, or you're going to buy this peanut butter chocolate Buckeye from me, and you'll die 1 year from tonight. Those are your only options.
Yeah.
You want to die tonight, or do you want to buy this pill and die a year from tonight?
I'd buy the pill.
Okay, what if the cost of it meant you'd have to give me everything you've got?
I'd give you everything I got.
Okay, so everybody who doesn't have skin in the game, you know, when I spend my own money, it's efficient.
Yep.
When I'm buying something for me, it's most efficient. So when I'm buying me a cell phone, I buy me an Apple. But now, but you said you wanted a smartphone for your Christmas present, so I buy you a Samsung. Mm-hmm. But then the government takes other people's money and buys stuff for other people.
Right.
No skin in the game, least efficient. So everybody in the government, no one in the government says we spend too much on housing because you buy your own house.
Right.
No one says we spend too much on cars, you buy your own car. No one says we spend too much on smartphones because you buy your own smartphone. But since I buy your health care, we spend too much money on health care. Yet every person I go to would give me their house, their car, and their cell phone. So when all the people say go left and all the government says go right, that's when you just got to call bullshit, especially when it goes to babies. Babies is the most irrational. If mama's 1-year-old baby was dying of cancer, she'd sell everything and move to Norway to save it, which is totally irrational. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, this kid doesn't know its name. It has no productivity. It has no value. It doesn't have an occupation. That's what's real. What's real is I would give both kidneys to any of my grandchildren. If the doc said, well, your granddaughter needs a kidney, she actually needs both and your liver. And when we're done with you, you'll just die. What's the chance I'd do it?
Pretty high.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I'm already done.
Right.
And Taylor's brand spanking new. She's 5 or 6. Is she 5 or 6? Pretty pathetic. She's 5. So that's how the cookie crumbles. Now, in healthcare, we already see around the world that when the doctor gives you a prescription, a lot of them are loaded on their smart card, and they go to an ATM machine, and the bottle comes out, the pills come out of a deal, the label comes on, and where's it made? Scottsdale, Arizona.
Okay.
But it's against law in America for a job protection plan. So we already have data around the world that a pharmacist, when automated by artificial intelligence and an ATM machine robot, they actually like it more because I can get my prescription filled 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't get to Walgreens or CVS say, oh, they're closed. Mm-hmm. Physicians, we see telemedicine taking off, that you're FaceTiming your doctor and all that. But see, dentistry is all surgery. Right. You work in an operatory. I have to touch you. I have to lean your head back, open wide. They're so particular about who touches them and gets in their mouth and do surgery. And they say they want the cheapest price. But look at the data. No dentists have customers for life. So you would think if the average dentist gets 20 new patients a month. So if a hygienist works 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, she works 2,000 hours. Well, no hygienists work 40 hours a week. They all work 3 or 4 days a week. But if she worked 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, she could only see 1,000 people twice a year. So if you had 25 new patients a month, every 2.5 years, every 3 years, you had another hygienist. But every 65-year-old dentist, been practicing that town of 5,000, 40 years, still needs new patients because every time he puts a new patient on, someone comes off. Why? Because it's very complex. It's surgery. I'm touching you. Did I hurt you? Did it not look right? The patients mostly never come back 80% of the time because they had a toxic experience with a condescending staff member. The dentist talked down to him. The assistant rolled her eyes. The hygienist said, which end of the toothbrush are you flossing with? The receptionist says, someone's always being short. If you always have first-rate employees being nice and not talking down and not being condescending And just that is what keeps customers for life. They don't know if you use Ivoclar or 3M. They know if you hurt them, but you didn't hurt them during the root canal. They don't know it's 5 millimeters short and won't last very long. They don't know that you bought your implant on eBay and it's probably made from melted down bumper cars. They just know if they like you and if you made them feel good and they secreted dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. But the fact that nobody can keep a customer for life, the fact that almost every dental office is plateaued, which means every time they get a new patient, they stay the same size. I mean, look at their numbers. If you find a dentist collecting $40,000 a month, he's been collecting $40,000 a month for 20 years. This one's doing 80. Well, he's still plateaued. He's been collecting 80 a month for 20 years. They're all plateaued. They're all losing. Every time you give them a new customer, one comes off. They have weird language like, well, this is what we do for new patients. Well, why don't you do that for all your patients? I mean, if every new patient gets a tour, why doesn't everybody get a tour? I mean, you know, so it's a very weird culture, but here's the final straw. Your girlfriend, if I walked up to her and I said, how much money do I have to give you to pull your front tooth and you'll never replace it the rest of your life?
She wouldn't do it.
I mean, she would for $1 million.
Maybe, yeah.
She wouldn't.
I don't think she would.
I know.
I don't think she would.
How much? What if I said, I'll give you $1 billion and I'll pull out all your teeth and laser remove all your hair. You'll be bald like Howie with no teeth, but you'll be a billionaire.
Would I do it? Yes.
Would she do it?
Probably not.
No. So you have people that say, I will trade my house and my car and my phone and my 401k if you save my 9-month-old baby from dying that can't talk. And I will give up the chance to be like the 2,800 billionaires on earth just to keep my teeth and my hair. Dentistry's got a good gig.
Right.
And it's not going to go away. So when I got out of school, HMOs and capitation were coming and all the dentists. The sky is falling. In every industry, going to the same deal. Like if you went to Wall Street, any day of the year, 20%, the sky is falling and they're buying gold. Which is like buying tulip bulbs, because if everything happened that they said happened, what are you going to do with your gold bars? It has no utility.
Right.
I mean, you can't eat it, drink it, feed your kids. I mean, it's jewelry and dental fillings. It's the stupidest. When people are infatuated with gold, they're just afraid. You go into any one of those 15 churches, 20% of them, oh, the end of the world's coming. You know, and when would Jesus come back? Oh, it'd be when I'm alive. Because it's all about me. And I'm afraid. So you go to Wall Street, 20% of the sky's falling. You go into church, 20% of the end of the world is coming. You know how many people have told me in the 30 years I practiced that the end of the world, and they give me a date. And then you'd see him next deal, and you'd look at the date and say, hey, she came in here last time, March 24th was the end of the world, and she's in for a cleaning at June 1st. And then you say to him, well, what happened to the end of the world? And then you know, got some bullshit story. But it's the same thing in dentistry. Oh, it's all going to go to DSOs, and everybody's going to work at McDentals, and we're all gone. Dude, you think Americans are going to stay with McDonald's when they don't even stay with private practice right now? Go to anybody in your town, and you should always do this. You should go to your town, and every time you meet this person, in fact, you should write a paper on this and do a survey on it, and I would publish it. Everybody in your town who's make them as old as possible, like 75, 80.
Yeah.
Find in fact, Ryan, you're going to do a deal with, your goal is to find everybody in Ahwatukee that made it to 100.
Yeah.
That's we need to do that. That's so cool. You ought to find everybody in your town that made it, like, say, 80 years old. Born in your town.
Yeah.
Ask them, how many dentists have you had?
They probably have.
So
a bunch.
So now they're all going to go to McDentals?
No.
When all these private practitioners are good people, good ethic, moral people, kept theirs. To keep a dental patient, to keep an iPhone patient on a standard product's pretty easy. But when you're selling the invisible, I tell you have 4 cavities based on trust. There's 5 different people in this office that you have the chance of loving or hating. And if one of them makes you feel bad and secrete adrenaline and norepinephrine, you're not coming back. And I might tell you have 4 cavities, but for some reason you don't trust me. It's so complex. Nobody in dentistry is going to get to a point where they say, oh man, I got 2 hygienists, they can't have any new patients, I'm booked out. I'm sorry, we're not taking new patients. Never seen it yet, ever, never once. Yet they're all going to join a HMO. They're all going to go to Medicaid. Bernie Sanders is going to have national health insurance. Shit, the NHS in England I mean, the defect, they can't even hire doctors to work there.
Really?
I mean, it's all imploding around the world, and nobody wants to embrace the realities, the realities. But I do say that my number one economic idol is Regina Hertzlinger. We've just podcasted her. She's been my economic idol for about 30 years. She thinks Switzerland has the best healthcare model now, and it's not even government-based. Now, the government will help you if you're poor and can't afford private insurance, but, you know, it's a very... So I would say this. Right now in healthcare, the best we've got right now is a Model T. And you're young enough, you might, if you live to be maybe 80, live to see a Mercedes-Benz healthcare system like Switzerland has today.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's most confusing at my age, that I was confused at your age, which I'm not confused, when you're little, you think all these great ideas will be implemented in like 5 years.
Right.
Oh my God, it's each generation, everybody hates change, each generation just moves a little, and all the moves are generational. The generation itself won't move.
Yeah.
They'll just eventually die off, and their kids went up one step. And then they'll die off, and their kids went up another step. But all the changes I've seen have been through your great-grandfather. He was replaced by your grandfather. He was replaced by your dad. Your dad's still film, X-ray, paper charts. So you'll move eventually to digital. You know, just so everything will move 10 times slower than you thought.
Okay.
It'll mostly move by generation. Nobody can please a dental patient. Between the shot, the drill, did you hurt him? What does it look like? And how did you and your assistant make him feel? And then they had to check out. And then they called your office, and someone told them to hold, and they were pissed off because they just found out their daughter stacked their car, or their son lost their job, their credit card was denied, and now what's the next move? They call your front office, and she couldn't have done anything right. Yeah. Humans are so complex. The only thing you learned today that was worthy is that I'm the only normal person. You got to meet the only normal person on earth.
It's great.
And the rest are everyone's batshit crazy. So to keep batshit crazy patients staffed by batshit crazy staff while you're giving them shots and root canals and maxing out their credit, they wanted to spend their credit card on an iPhone and peanut butter chocolates.
Yeah.
Not root canals.
Right.
But my God, the fact that you had the ambition to fly all the way out here to come on the show, what a guy. Thank you so much for coming over.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh my God, it was awesome.